Welcome to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. Now, the Trump administration has put America first for as long as the president has been in office. His Make America Great Again movement, that's restoring pride in the nation. Well, one of the executive orders he's considering issuing is going to trigger a massive meltdown on the left, and we're going to tell you why here in a moment, but please give us a like, share, and comment at Explain America if you support our common sense journalism. We really appreciate it. Now, President Trump is taking symbolism very seriously. He wants Americans to feel proud of their country again. He wants us to have that nostalgic feeling for the flag, for the 4th of July, for veterans, and to really feel good about living in our country, much like some of you might remember from the 1980s. Under President Ronald Reagan. Well, one of the executive orders he's thinking about issuing is to have the Justice Department get creative about those anti-American protesters who burn the flag in public. He's looking at maybe issuing orders where he can just bring charges of disorderly conduct, public nuisance, environmental violations, and more to those who burn Old Glory in the streets. That's according to News Nation. Now, it's very interesting because he is looking to craft this executive order so that it is not about speech so much as it is about the environment, as it about public order. And this could get very interesting because previous attempts to ban flag desecration by states and even by Congress have been overturned by the Supreme Court. Now, let's get into this a little bit because it's interesting. Street versus New York, 1969. You might remember the hippies out on the streets protesting the Vietnam War. Well, there was one named Sidney Street who burned a flag in Brooklyn to protest the shooting of a civil rights activist named James Meredith. He was convicted under a New York law, that's right, New York, prohibiting flag desecration and contemptuous speech about the flag, partly for saying, quote, "We don't need no damn flag," unquote. Well, in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court overturned the conviction. It ruled that punishing Street for his verbal criticism of the flag violated his free speech rights. But at that point, the court had avoided directly addressing whether the flag burning itself was protected, focusing instead on the speech component. Well, that brings us to a very interesting case, Texas versus Johnson in 1989. Now, get this. During the 1984 Republican National Convention in Dallas, Gregory Lee Johnson burned an American flag to protest Reagan administration policies. Now, some things never change, right? He was convicted under a Texas law prohibiting flag desecration. But in a 5-4 decision, the court held that flag burning is expressive conduct protected by the First Amendment. Justice William Brennan wrote that the government cannot prohibit such acts simply because they are offensive, as this would suppress free expression. The decision invalidated flag desecration laws in 48 states. And that brings us to yet another case, United States versus Eichmann, 1990. After Texas versus Johnson, Congress passed the Flag Protection Act of 1989 to criminalize flag desecration. Protesters, including Sean Eichmann, burned flags on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in violation of the new law. And in a 5-4 decision, the court struck down the federal law, reaffirming Texas versus Johnson. So the court ruled that the government's interest in protecting the flag's symbolic value did not outweigh the First Amendment right to expressive conduct, even under a content-neutral statute. So the Supreme Court consistently has said flag burning is protected as symbolic speech under the First Amendment. And this was established in Texas versus Johnson and reaffirmed in United States versus Eichmann. Now, this is what's interesting. President Trump appears to be getting clever about how he is approaching this flag burning in public, looking to cite some novel arguments about public order, about the environment. But it's going to be a little tricky because I think that there are some justices on the Supreme Court who don't typically change their thinking when it comes to novel or very creative arguments. because, for example, if burning flag is an environmental regulation, so is burning trash, right? Or burning leaves. And there are some local ordinances where, that could be considered illegal, but you probably couldn't get disparate treatment for burning a flag versus burning something else in public. Like burning a cigarette, for example, creates an environmental hazard for some people. Can you ban it on the streets? Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, some states, cities obviously do ban smoking in certain areas, so like around federal buildings or state buildings, for example. So the regulation of flag burning is going to get dicey because of First Amendment speech, and I think that conservatives have to consider if it's worth it, because maybe the solution to flag burning is just to go out and wave a flag patriotically and say that you love the country, and to just drown them out and make a bigger public show of your speech to counter their speech. But let us know what you think. Will the Trump administration be able to pull this off and make it stick? I think it's a good question. And thank you for weighing in.